Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Devanshi Mathur, and I would like to welcome you all to EduSmart's Professional Development Series. Some of you are new here, so please let me properly welcome you. As a part of this series, we offer free professional development webinars to all teachers with the opportunity to earn CPE credits. So if you're interested in seeing what type of topics we're covering, what our schedule is for this semester, please stop by our website, www.edusmart.com/webinars. Throughout this webinar, please leave your questions in the chat and I will feed them to our speaker at the end as a part of our Q&A session. So without further ado, let's get this party started. As the president of Lisa's fan club, I get the honor to introduce our presenter today. Lisa is known for offering challenging, creative, hands-on science educator workshops. She has over 34 years of experience in science education, with over 25 years of presenting conference sessions and workshops for science teachers. Before she joined us here at EduSmart, she worked as a classroom teacher from grades 5 through 12. Was a department chair, an online certification teacher, virtual school curriculum designer, independent science consultant, and science curriculum director. Basically, if you are anything in the cross section of science and education, Lisa has been there and done that for longer than I've been alive. So please give your warmest welcome to the one and only Lisa.
Thank you, Devanshi, and welcome everyone. I didn't get a chance to see everyone rolling through as you came in, but I did see some familiar names, so it's nice to see some of you again. What we're going to be talking about today is the STAAR redesign. I know that classroom teachers and you're a little bit worried about how are we going to prepare our students to be ready to take the new STAAR test this spring. So this workshop is going to be in two parts. Today we're going to talk about the types of questions and how they're going to be scored, as well as take a look at resources that TEA has for you to look at some sample questions. And part two will be later on October 12th, where we want to showcase some things we're doing inside EduSmart, even more than we already do, that will help students be more prepared for the changes coming on this test. You're all well aware that this is due to House Bill 3906, which came out of, that should say 2019. I didn't catch that typo. And what that legislation said is that you can't have more than 75% multiple choice questions. And that this requirement will take effect on all STAAR tests beginning with the spring 2023 administration. So it's coming up soon. And part of why we did this webinar is to make sure you felt a little more secure with sharing information with your teachers about how this is going to work. There are a lot of new question types that TEA has presented, but not all of them are going to be used on the Science STAAR. These 6 are going to be the new question types. Again, we're still going to have multiple choice. But the other options we're going to have is multiple select, drag and drop, hotspot, multi-part, constructed response, and text entry. And I'm going to go over these one at a time with some examples so that you can see what they mean when they talk about these new question types. The first one I'm going to address is multiple select. This type of question is going to be on all versions of the STAAR in science. Grade 5, Spanish grade 5, grade 8, and the biology EOC. And what this means is it's a multiple choice type question, but there can be more than one correct answer. So here's a sample one here on the right. Also, we're going to share the slide deck with you, I should say, so everyone's not frantically trying to take notes, that you'll get a copy of all this for you to look at a little more closely later on. But you can see which statements describe the life cycle shown, select 2 correct answers. And so this question is going to be worth more than 1 point. So the point value is going to be a maximum of 2 points with the possibility of receiving 1 point for a partially correct response. Here's a sample from a higher grade, just so you can see which two statements are true, just describing the graph. Again, more than one correct answer. And the entire question were 2 points with the possibility of 1 point for a partially correct response. For this multiple select, that's a sample from the biology EOC sampler that TEA has posted online. Here's what the student will see if they get if you select both correct answers, you'll get 2 points. If you select only one of the correct answers, you get 1 point. And if you select none of the correct answers, you get 0 points. If you're a customer of EduSmart, you may already be aware that we have multiple instances of a chance for you to see how this works inside of EduSmart. So one example is with our Word Explorer. The first thing that pops up are visual examples where the student's given the word and they have to click on every single card that they think fits that vocabulary word. So there's more than one correct answer. The next step in our Word Explorer is facts. And you can see here that there's more than one correct answer that they can select here. We have new science investigation activities that you can find in the process skill part of the website. And built within this are multiple examples of these new question item types. And here's one that's a multiple select. It says select 2 correct answers. So students will have a chance to practice this before they see the STAAR exam. The next question type is drag and drop. I don't know why the font looks different when we rehearsed this last week and it looked just fine. So I don't know what's going up there. Sorry about that. This will also show up on all versions of the STAAR exam, where the students are going to have to move a piece of text or some type of graphic element and put it somewhere else on the screen. So in this example, they have 3 types of soil and they have to drag the right word into the chart to match the soil type. So there's more than one correct answer here as well. But the whole question is only worth 2 points maximum, with the possibility of 1 point for a partially correct response. Here's another example that does something similar where students drag and drop. And this is the student example from a grade 5 sampler from the online practice test that TEA has posted. And so they have to drag 4 words into the correct boxes. And the only way to get the 2 point maximum is if they drag them into every box correctly. If they answer 2 boxes correctly and 2 incorrectly, they would get half of the points for 1. And then if you only answer 1 or 0 boxes correctly, you get 0 points for a question like this. In EduSmart, we have fill-in activities as part of our Word Explorer as well. And so what students do is they drag and drop these words into the sentence below. And so that's an example of drag and drop. We also have interactivities like this one online. They're also drag and drop in our science investigation and in our simulations. And so what students would do is drag the picture that's over to the right to the correct place in the chart that's in the middle for this one. Here's an example of a drag and drop from our new science investigation activities, where you can see I've dragged some of the words down and put them in the correct location so you can see how it works. And you can see there's still 1 more box that a student would have to drag and choose between these 2 terms for what would fill in that last box correctly. The next question type is the hotspot. This one shows up in all versions of the STAAR test as well, where they would, this one, all they do is click on a correct answer. So if it's salt, you would click on there. There's going to be more than one correct answer. So again, the point value is going to be depend on 2 points total, but you can get a partial correct answer here. So this one says which 3 locations are likely experiencing cool, fair weather with no precipitation. For the online one that is at TEA, here's another example from the grade 5 science sampler. Which examples in the image demonstrate inherited traits? Select 2 correct answers. And if you select, the student selects both correct answers, they get both points. If they only select 1 correct answer, they get 1 point. And if they don't select any correct answers, they get 0 points. We have multiple activities that use this hotspot type answer within EduSmart. They're within our science investigation activities, within simulations and interactivities. So this one, what the student is supposed to do is they see the animal here and they're supposed to click on which of these environment would you find that animal in. So this one only has 1 answer, but it goes on to have multiple instances to get to use this. Here's one from a higher grade simulate our interactivity, where they have to click which leaf has the correct hypothesis on it, or which one they think it is, and then they'll go on to do an activity to evaluate that. And then this is one from our new science investigation activity. Which region do you think most of the nitrogen is coming from? And they click on the statement that they think is the correct answer. And so that's a hotspot. The next item type is a text entry. These will be, again, on all versions of the STAAR test, where the student types in a number, word, or phrase. It's like a griddable where they have to type them, or they, instead of bubbling in, they type it in, and it may have multiple parts. So for the same reason, it may have. Was there a question?
I'm glad to hear that. All righty.
Okay.
You're good, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So they also can get partial credit for this, with it being a maximum of 2 points. This one, it has 1 answer. So this would be worth 1 point versus 2 points. And they here are given the atomic mass of lead and the atomic number, and they have to determine how many neutrons are present. I'll show you the site a little bit later that we think is going to mimic what the STAAR looks like, and the students will have access to a calculator to be able to do this. So here's the student example view. They're asked which transport tissue allows water to travel upward from the roots to the leaves, and they have to type the answer in the box. So the only way to get the 1 point for this is to type the correct answer. If they type something incorrect, they get 0 points. We also have text entry in EduSmart. So for this one, it's a simulation, and the student would run this experiment to collect data, and then they have to type it in the box that's given. The same here, they're given numerical numbers, and they have to do a calculation to get to another number, and that's also text entry. Another type of question is multi-part. This one is also on all examples of the STAAR test. It's a 2-part question, so each part will be worth 1 point, but there's a difference in how it's scored, that you have to get part A correct in order to get credit for part B. And so there'll be 1 correct answer for part A and 1 for part B here. Although early samples of questions had some that had more than 1 answer for part B, like this one for sample biology. So not exactly sure that they're always going to have just 1 correct answer. For what's online right now, this is an example of a multi-part that's in grade 8 with a part A and part B. And as you would expect, you have to get part A and part B right to get the 2 points for the question. And if you have part A correct and part B incorrect, you get 1 point. And if you get part A incorrect, it doesn't matter what you put for part B, you get 0 points, because you're evaluating your answer based on something that you thought was incorrect. So we have samples of this in EduSmart, where we doing, of course, our STAAR Smart test that's coming later this semester. And so we just have here an example of one where there's a part A and a part B with 2 points possible credit. To get 1 point, you have to get the part A correct. We also have some multi-part type answers in our science investigation activities. This is one taken from a investigation in biology. And so they have to analyze data to get to the answer and then answer a question about why the answer for part A. Why did you choose that answer and why are they not dividing as rapidly? And then finally, the new question type is short constructed response. Students are given a text box of which the number of characters will vary. This one says 250, but that doesn't mean every question will get 250 characters. But they have to type in something to show that they have understanding of what the topic is. It's worth 2 points. It's going to be graded on a rubric. TEA has not shared the rubric with us yet, so I don't know exactly how that's going to be graded. And the sample test they have online, they grade for you at the end, but they just leave it blank for the constructed response. So here's another example. Again, worth 2 points, graded on a rubric. And then online, this is a biology end of course example. It has 2 parts. So this one that tells you why it's worth 2 points. How does the environmental change showed here affect ecosystem stability and its ability to recover from change? So that one's pretty easy to see that you would have to answer both parts of the question to get the 2 points, 1 for each part. So again, you have to answer both. To get partial credit, you could correctly answer one or the other. And if you don't answer either one correctly, or you don't answer at all, you get 0 points for that short constructed response. We have short constructed response in our readers in EduSmart. So here's an example from a reader that's about mixtures. And so here, what we have is a place for students to type this in. And from the teacher end of things, when you look at student work, there's a sample answer given so that you can compare the student answer to the proposed correct answer. Students can also see that immediately once they type it in and hit submit, they can see and match their answer to what we have as a given answer. And within our new science investigation activities, as well as in simulation, journal activities, and our instructional module companions, we have places for short constructed response. And so here is an example of one in a science investigation activity. Here are the results. Do they support your hypothesis? Of course, we have a button for them to click to check they can't remember their hypothesis. And they have to tell us which region is contributing most of the nitrogen to the ecosystem. This is a watershed activity in 7th grade. And just a reminder that we're only going to have those 6 question types in science, that there are more question types you may hear from colleagues in ELA, social studies, or in math, that we do not have them. We will not have highlighted text question items, no graphing question items, no slider bar graph question items, and no inline text where they have to click a portion of the text to get to the answer. So Devanshi is going to put this link in the chat as well, but TEA has online sample questions for grade levels, and I'm going to go to this shortly so you can see it live. It's not intuitive. You kind of have to click around to figure out how it works. And so I've put together a short tutorial that helps you look at the different parts so that you can go back and remember what all the buttons mean. So becoming familiar with how that site navigates will probably help you show students how that works before they see the STAAR test online this spring. So that link should be in the chat. you should see, if you click on it, you don't have to click on it now, but you'll see a screen that looks like this. You can just leave guest user and guest session on to see the sample questions. And the login button is way down here at the bottom where it says sign in. So I'm going to leave my PowerPoint, go here to the live screen where you can see the sign in button at the bottom. And this is what you'll see for the next screen where you pick a grade level. So let's just pick 5th grade since that's the first STAAR level. I only want to look at STAAR new test item types. So I click here and you'll see here reading, Spanish reading, math, Spanish math, science, Spanish science. So I'm going to click on the science. You can turn on different types of calculators. We don't need it for 5th grade. I'm just going to leave all the settings at default, but you can see you have accommodations here for students that might need it to turn text to speech. You can set a default zoom so they don't have to click a zoom button, that all the questions show up larger font. The same, you can change the color setting. You can make the mouse symbol bigger. You can turn on spelling assistance and text to speech here, but I'm just going to leave the default and go here. This is review your test settings, things to keep in mind, a help guide if you wanted to check on that. But I'm just going to click begin test now to show you what it looks like. So here's the question. That's easy to see. You're to type in a word in the text box here. So students will have to know to click their mouse into the text box. Navigation tools are way up here to the left, and other tools are way over here to the right. There's a notepad tool, which is a general tool just to keep notes if they want to type notes that they can access during the entire test. They have a line reader tool, which you can see.
Can you zoom in into your screen by any chance?
I sure can. I sure can.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a big giant screen. Hold on. There it is. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, I have like a double-sized screen and I forget it shows up small when I do it online. So this line reader tool, if they can read line by line on here. You can zoom out or zoom in on individual questions here. If you have a student that needs those accommodations, you can set it up so all the tests shows up zoomed and they don't have to click that button. But again, they're going to need to be able to click in this box to type in an answer. I'm going to type in friction. And then it's not intuitive what you're supposed to do when you're done. There's not an enter button down here. And so you have to go back up here to the navigation at the top left. If you're sure about your answer, you can go ahead and click save. If you're not sure and you want to go back and review it, just click next and it will take you to the next screen. Okay, now we can't see the whole question, but so this one has a diagram and it has two text entry boxes where I have to type letters in. Again, you have the same tools I showed you up here. What I didn't show you with the last one is you have more tools here. If you want to mark for review, you can put a flag on it and that flag will show up. Like, I don't want to do this one now, I want to come back later, but I want a reminder. You can use that. And it also has a sticky note tool that you can use to type in something the student may want to remember about this question. It stays with the question, not with the whole test. So I don't know what they may put on this one, but that's just another tool that you can use per question. I'm going to skip that one since I flagged it. It reminds me that I didn't answer it. Do I still want to go to the next question? Yes. And here is a hotspot where they're told to select 4 correct answers. So to get full credit, they would have to select all 4. Anything less than all 4, would be, if they have at least 2 of them, would be 2 points. 1 point. And then if they don't have even 2 of them correct, they would get 0 points for this. So rather than go through the entire test, I'm going to navigate back to my tutorial here. You know what? The text is correct here, so that's bizarre. I'm just going to stick here so we don't have issues with the font. That's crazy. All right. So here I'm taking, let me go back to the beginning. I put a tutorial here that you'll get a copy of the PowerPoint. And I'm going through screen by screen to remind you of what you should click on. Here I did grade 5, but you could have selected a different grade level to look at that one. You can see here I just left that defaulted and hit select. Here, begin test now. A reminder that this notepad, at the beginning, the notepad, you can access it anytime during the test. It's not attached to a question. The sticky note sticks to the question, so that one's a little bit different. Again, a reminder that you have the line reader tool, you have the enlarge or make smaller text tool. I pulled up some grade 8 just so you could see that there are a lot more accommodations here for grade 8. They can click and see a periodic table. Oh, you know what? I have other things on here that won't show if I'm not in present mode. You have equations that you can reference, and it pulls up that reference chart that you're familiar with here. If you click on calculator, you can either choose a basic calculator or a scientific calculator. There's the TI calculator. Whoops. All right. Then let's go back over here since the font is acting weird. You have the text entry box here that you type an answer in. You can click the buttons here that are specific to the questions to use. So if you click tutorial, it just reminds you there's a little play button, and you can play a tutorial for how to fill in a text entry. This one just has numbers, but it works the same way. You can flag it, like I said. It also, if you leave a sticky note, it, yeah, I have some more layered stuff here. Sorry, I don't know what's the issue with the font, but if you mark it for review, it shows up here. If you mark a sticky note, sticky notes aren't scored. Here's what you might put as a note here. I think the answer is friction, but it might be opposing force. So this is reminding me I want to go back and look at that question at the end. And the sticky note icon shows up here. Again, if you're sure of your answer, you can hit save. If you're not sure, hit next, and it will let you go back and review. You'll get a prompt if you forget to answer the question, which I showed you on the live sample. And then you'll get another prompt at the end of the test. You viewed all the questions. When you're finished checking your answers, click the end test button, which shows up when you get to the end. That new button will pop up. And it will give you this screen, and it will tell you, you have marked some questions, so you need to go back and review that before you get to end of the test. And then this symbol indicates ones that you didn't answer. So I clicked through really fast on this one, just so I could get to the screen to take a picture. It tells me I need to go back to question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12 before I hit the submit test button. And it gives you another prompt. Are you sure you want to submit the test? And then, of course, for these online sample questions, you can see the results you get from these 12 questions they put in this sample test. This was for grade 5 Science STAAR. You can see I did pretty well. I'm pretty good at 5th grade science. But the last 2 questions, 11 and 12, are short constructed response. And so they didn't grade those, and they haven't shared the rubric for how those will be graded. Some of it, it's intuitive, but some of it, not so much. And let me go back to here so we can see that I do know how to spell. there was one more thing I think I did not talk about, and that is way back here at the short constructed response. So let me go back to here when I showed you this. Because the font was showing up crazy, I think I didn't emphasize that these type in ones with short constructed response, they will not be on the Spanish grade 5 test. Probably because of the difficulty of grading, having enough graders to be able to grade those short constructed responses. They will be on all the others, and this is the only exception for something that's not going to be on every version of the test. So let me go past the sample on how to use that sample test online. And remember that the legislation says there can be no more than 75% of the questions multiple choice. That doesn't mean that 75% of the questions are going to be multiple choice. It can be less than 75. It just can't be more than 75, the way the law was worded. So what I did here as a reminder, I put the number of questions that are at each grade level, and then there can be no more than 27 multiple choice questions on grade 5, and at least 9 of the new test item types. Because of the way the law was worded, we don't have an exact number. This is roughly 75%, and this is roughly 25. But this number can be smaller and this number can be larger. So I hope that makes sense. So I think I'm going to open it up to questions here, Devanshi, rather than waiting until I get to the end of the PowerPoint. I don't know. I see there's a little chat, but I haven't been able to read it.
You're completely fine. That sounds like a great plan to me. So hold on, we've got 2 new questions coming in. Let me just take note of them. Okay, so we're going to just start from the top if we're cool with that, Lisa. So the first question we had come in today was regarding the recording. That came in a few times, so just wanted to let you all know that for those of you who weren't able to make it live today, came in late or had to leave early, everyone who has registered for this webinar will be receiving a copy of this recording as well as a copy of Lisa's slide deck early next week. So the next question we had come in came from Becky. In your experience, will it always say how many to select for multiple choice questions?
Yes, I think they're going to make that clear, yes.
The next question came from Don. What about spelling for the fill-in question?
That's a good question. You can you can toggle on that spelling help. But I'm not sure for like the one that said friction where it was just a word. That is going to be not graded by a person. So I'm sure they've allowed some variation for spelling, but knowing how to spell the word, of course, is always going to be better than hoping that the misspelled word goes through. It's a good question. I'm going to go back and turn on the spelling help because I did not test that. And maybe I can answer your question after I go back through and do that. That's a really good question. I'd like to see how the sample questions are scored if you spell something wrong or have a typographical error.
Are you ready for the next question, Lisa? Do you want to?
Yeah, no,
okay, sure. So the next question we came in was someone was asking for clarification on the difference between the part 1 of this webinar and part 2 of this webinar.
Okay, sure. So part 1, I wanted to focus on the new question types, as well as how the new question types will be scored or graded, as well as how you can go look at more examples of these new question types on the sample assessment website. What we're going to do for part 2 is for questions that have been asked that I don't have an answer for, like the spelling, I'll make sure to address that in part 2. But we have new resources coming in EduSmart to within our STAAR Smart and our other assessment pieces, as well as some new ways to do some formative assessment before they get there that I'll talk about in part 2. But if you have more questions and you think about them after the webinar, that's another good reason to come back to part 2. You can ask me then, or you can send them in advance, and that way I'll be sure to have an answer to your question.
Awesome. Our next question comes from Isabel. Where would a student or teacher find these question types? Isabel, if you want to unmute yourself and clarify, but that was her question. Where would a student or teacher find these question types?
She may have asked before I showed the sample assessment site from TEA. So there's one place. Within EduSmart, we have them all over pretty much every part of the product. If she wanted to know specific examples at the grade level that she teaches, of course, we can help her with that. So if I didn't answer your question, please feel free to unmute and ask some more about that.
Our next question comes from Norma. Do you have EduSmart for reading and math?
Oh, unfortunately, we do science. We're really good at science, and we stick to science. So we only have EduSmart for science.
Our next question comes from Jamie. Is there a time limit on this test?
There is a time limit on the test. It's also within statute, and off the top of my head, because I've been a curriculum director and not involved in testing, I don't know what that time limit is, but it's a pretty broad time limit. The House bill that asked for these new question types did not change the time limit of the test. So someone who has given STAAR to students more than me may be able to type in the chat or unmute and answer that question.
We have Patricia Garcia, who's written in, there is no time limit for the 2022-2023 school year. They have until the end of the school day to complete any of the STAAR tests.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm on the curriculum end rather than the about the test end of this. So
go team. Our next question comes from Victoria. Does the symbol for not answering questions appear if the student doesn't hit save after responding a free response? After answering.
Oh, that's another good question. The little red triangle. Yes, it will show up as not being answered if they didn't hit. Oh no, I don't think they have to hit save. Y'all are coming up with scenarios that I didn't think of when I did this practice test. I'll have to go back to double check. I hate to say one way or the other without experience doing that. So I'm sorry that I don't know the answer. That's one I should have known the answer to, and I didn't think about testing that.
This is just as much as a test for you, Lisa, as it is for the students at the end of the year.
That's a very good question. So
our next comment comes from Patricia Garcia. There are new blueprints for grade 5, grade 8 science and biology. Reduced number of test items, i.e. biology now has 45 test items.
Oh, okay. Okay. I will correct that slide before we send it out to everyone.
Our next question comes from Consuelo. If they answer the question and don't hit save, is it still saved on the test?
Their answer will still be there, but that's a little bit similar to the other question. Will it let them submit, or do they have to go back and hit save on that question? I'll have to get back to you on that. 100% their answer will still be there, even if they didn't hit save, but I don't know for sure if it will let them submit unless they save individual questions. So
Our next question is, what ideas can be shared on how to practice filling in the blank with no word bank? Also, will the fill in the blanks need to have correct capitalization and punctuation?
I feel pretty sure that the capitalization and punctuation will not affect what's in those boxes. So you're talking about the text entry where they type in something short, or the short constructed response would have a different answer. So ask me the question again so I can make sure.
Yeah. What ideas can be shared of how to practice filling in the blanks with no word banks? Also, will the fill in the blanks need to have correct capitalization and punctuation?
Okay. So practice for filling in the blank. I don't know if you're an EduSmart customer, but we have multiple opportunities where they have to fill in a blank. Now, if you're thinking about our instructional module companions, we do have a word bank for that. But you have the ability as a teacher to download the Google Doc version, and you could actually remove the word bank before you give it to students. For other short constructed responses within our new science investigation activities, there's not a word bank. And for the short constructed responses for journals and for the readers and other places within EduSmart, there's not a word bank. So where else online you could find resources to help you, that I don't know the answer to.
And with that, Patricia Garcia has shared a link for the link to new blueprints for science on the TEA website.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll correct this slide. It won't take but a second. So you won't get it till next week. And so we'll fix it by then.
We've got plenty of time. Exactly. And those wraps up all the questions that were submitted through the chat. For those of you who did submit your questions through the chat, if you would like some more clarification, feel free to unmute right now and ask any follow-up questions. We'll give you all about a minute.
Okay, thank you for answering that last question. Basically, I know we've been, it may be a bad practice, but like even on the closing questions where you have to close the sentence with the correct answer, even with those, we've used word banks especially to help our 504 and our kids that need help. And so I'm thinking, you know, I have one class that's all has accommodations. There's 17 in that class. So how to start helping those students that have to take the same STAAR test, practice not having a word bank. And I haven't looked at EduSmart enough, but I realize that's one answer is to go to EduSmart and start playing with that with them.
Right. Well, just any good practice would you can scaffold it by starting them with the word bank and maybe taking some of the words off the word bank, and they have to come up with 1 or 2 words on their own. And then as you move through the year, kind of take that scaffolding away when they're doing practice tests for STAAR.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't know of an online resource that's going to help you get them from point A to point B. Any other questions? All right. Before we go, I think Devanshi's going to put a link to part 2 of this webinar in the chat, but we also have other upcoming webinars. I just put the ones we have coming in September. On the 14th, we have a session on bridging the gap with inquiry-based learning. And one on the 28th about some new interactive test prep strategies that we are going to use here at EduSmart that may be helpful. So you can sign up for those online. Devanshi has the link to put in the chat for that as well. But it will probably also be on the email, the follow-up email that she sends out last week. And last but not least, we want to thank you for coming. This does have my email on here. So if you think of a question it's like, 5 minutes after you log off, you're like, oh, I wish I should have asked this. Feel free to reach out to me by email. My email is just lisa@edusmart.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you think of after the webinar related to this.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Lisa. I just wanted to take a moment, Lisa. Thank you so much for taking the time, doing all of this research and putting it together for all of us to kind of learn from and ask questions and learn from each other. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. That's a gold star. Thank you, thank you. And for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that this is the start of all of the fun craziness that is coming your way this year. And for you all to take time out of your day to sit with us and learn and share these resources means a lot. Just like Lisa said, I have shared all of the links she mentioned in our chat, as well as an end of the webinar survey. This survey helps us kind of feedback and respond to what you guys are looking for and how to better cater these webinars to what you guys need. So please feel free to take a moment to fill that up. It won't take more than a minute or two. But with that, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you all to educators taking time today to discuss with us, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good one, everybody.